Hello multi-meta malt mentioners, and thank you to Willem Killian. Should get that right because Willem's had quite a few malt mentions in this channel so far. Welcome all you whisky fans to Ralphie Review 979 Extras, which is followed on from 979 where I reviewed this rather tasty Laphroaig 10-year-old cask strength batch number 15. Let's put it into the actual window of my camera, which focuses. See it? Can you see it clearly now? Is everything else out of focus? Anyway, there we go. It's batch 15, and this was bottled in December 2021. And I'm sure before too long there'll be a batch 16, which will be a different bottling strength, and it'll have a slightly different flavour profile. But it will still, like all previous incarnations of Laphroaig, be profoundly tasting of peatiness, or as a young chap that I happen to know, little Timmy says, tastes of earthquakes. There we go. Absolutely spot on. Correct. Tastes of earthquakes. And it's up to us to discover whether we like the taste of earthquakes or not. We've got to taste them first. We might taste it with a friend. We might taste it in a bar. We might go into a specialist whisky shop, because it certainly won't happen with your online retailers or Amazon or in a supermarket where you get to taste and try before you buy. However, all credit to the online retailers, because they now do little miniature bottles, 5 centilitre, 10 centilitre bottles, where you can buy the little miniature version so that you can do exactly that. You can taste and try before you commit your hard-earned money, because money is hard-earned these days, always is, particularly when you're paying such a substantial back to the authorities, not the government, the authorities in tax. But there we go, I'm not here to talk about taxes, I'm here to talk about whisky. But they both are interlinked, because there's a lot of tax in whisky, you see. There's not just value-added tax in the UK, there's custom and excise duty for His Majesty's Revenue and Customs. And that money goes into His Majesty's Revenue and Customs. That's where it goes. That's why the department is given the title it's got. There we go. And as you well know, the taxability of the liquor in the UK is further taxed with the value-added tax. So in fact you get taxed on the tax you pay. And this is one very specific, absolute reason that I'm mentioning here, right now, as to why you really need to get your bearings when you're buying bottles of spirits, any spirit, so as to avoid buying bottles of disappointment. Now, I'm not talking about flavour profiles of decently made spirit which just happen to be not suitable to your palate. It's a classic example. But I'm talking about badly made whisky, and also decently made whisky at too high a price. Now, we've all got our budgets, we all know what we can afford, we all know what we're going to budget for, and the last thing we want is to have too many bad experiences at early stages in our journey that we decide, stuff that, I'm not buying any more of that Scotch whisky, it's too expensive, the quality's not good of the bottles I bought, because they looked lovely, the colour looked really, really nice. Oh, the colour looked amazing. But the taste was rubbish. It happens. I've had the experience myself quite a number of times. So it's not your imagination. You do get badly made whisky badly bottled. Badly matured and badly bottled, and the whisky industry feels entitled, and it is. It's an entitlement that they can just put out the occasional bad batch in some brands, or they can change the profile of a whisky, as they did with the classic blended whisky called Black Bottle. They brought out a new version of Black Bottle and it was awful. It was just not good. Or you'll find this recently with Clynelish, where they've brought out standard bottlings of 14-year-old Clynelish which lack the waxiness, which is an integral classic component of the Clynelish signature. Sure, the fruity version, clean and fruity, it's all very nice, but it's not the real deal. And when you've had the real deal, you want to either maintain that in your purchases or just move on to something else. This is the reality in which we live. I'm fortunate. I run a whisky channel and I get income from it, so that's what buys the whiskies that I review. So occasionally I will buy whiskies that I don't really want to buy, but because they're widely available, I do feel that a review is going to be useful of recognisable whisky, and we'll have that the next few weeks with 10-year-old Talisker, which I've not gone anywhere near for a while because my last experience wasn't great. So I bought another bottle a few years later. We'll see how it goes. But it's all very well for me because I have the budget for it. For the standard whiskies, not for the ridiculously overpriced massive age statement whiskies, which, to be honest, some of them are really good, but they're just not worth the price. But it depends what the value of your money is. And there's some people in the world who are multimillionaires, or they're multi-millions in debt to the bank because they've remortgaged their property, and they want to live their high life, and they want to get into whisky because it's cool and sophisticated. They want to wear the Swiss watch, and they want to buy a little Hermes bauble for someone as a present. And if that's what people want, good luck to them. But you know, it's an empty process really of overt materialism. But it's something we've got to be on our guard against, because there's some nicely presented bottles, and you see them in the bright lights and decanters, in little wooden boxes and plush velvet interiors. And the marketing people will gush, literally, they gush on about the unique provenance and rarity of the finest hand-selected casks, which have slumbered all these long years under the loving care and in the tender arms of the owners of the distillery, who blah, 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 blah. I'm telling you, if you're not sick of all that disingenuous crap by now, visit a few more distilleries. This is why you've got to be careful which distilleries you visit. Some are moving ahead. They're getting up to speed with the contemporary messaging, rather than old-fashioned, tired, exhausted, cobweb-infested, dust-strewn marketing cliches, which are frankly contaminating. And I'm picking my words carefully here. They're contaminating the whisky messaging these days. And frankly, it's got to stop. It really has. There's too many people having a bad buy of something they were sold by a salesperson, and then they come online for an explanation as to why they're not enjoying it, and this is the first time they learn about the devastation imposed on their whisky by being bottled at 40%, brutally chill filtered and absolutely loaded up to the gunnels with that Tango fake tan of E150A. Now, for regular viewers and for people who are connecting through the internet, who have some experience, we're wise for these tactics. It's why we don't buy official bottles of Bowmore, yeah. Well, I mean, there's some good bottlings of Bowmore actually, but don't buy the 12-year-old. Just don't. Don't. You're going to be disappointed. Or Dalmore, that's another classic example. I mean, Dalmore is actually a great single malt, but the problem's in the presentation to market. It's just so soaked in its own cliches that it's devalued. It's utterly devalued to real whisky aficionados and people who know about whisky. And again, just to remind you, because these are strong words in an industry that likes to keep everything sort of vanilla, sanitized and polite. But hey, I'm buying this stuff with my money that I'm earning from delivering these videos to you. So thank you for watching. You are my sponsor. Cheers. The theme of my conversation crops up quite often for a very simple reason. It's got to be repeated before it really sinks in. There are so many seriously good single malts out there, packed full of flavour, packed full of wonderful smells, but they don't have the same marketing push that more recognisable brands have. And this is where the internet's so important for those distilleries who finally make their mind up that they're going to commit to quality of presentation. They are going to focus in investing in the calibre of smell and taste to deliver a self-evident quality product to the market with the minimum of fuss. My good, that's worked very well for Springbank, and it's now working very well for Ardnamurchan. It's working very well for Isle of Arran. It's working wonderfully well for Deanston. There are more distilleries, quite a few, and it's so heartening for me to see some of these little new fledgling distilleries, which you probably don't see in your shelves yet. But hopefully you will in the future as they grow and develop on their success, where they are focusing on the natural presentation, unfiltered. Don't filter out flavour. Chill filtering, literally, it filters out the flavour of whiskey. The only reason it's done is to help sanitise and mask over the blemishes of badly made product. Especially when it's bottled at 40%. Not in all cases, but increasingly in many cases. And yes, it's controversial, and as much as there's people in the whisky industry despise me for what I'm saying, there are other people in the Scotch whisky industry saying, I wish more people like Ralphie would speak up so as that we can do our bit to keep our jobs, support our families, and hold on to the world-class reputation that Scotch whisky has, which is being diminished by the sanitisation and presentation and the marketing-heavy dollops. Yeah, just dumb dollops that are landing, these horrible cliches that are landing in so many old legacy media places, whether it be newspapers and... Oh, don't get me started in newspapers, by the way, because they're all busy pumping cask investments. This is another thing I want to mention in passing. The heat is really heating up under cask investments. People are getting ripped off. Please don't be one of them. There are a few good companies. They have a good solid foot within the whisky industry, and they're looking at the long term. Unfortunately, the whole unregulated, and this is important, it is unregulated, and it should be regulated, and the Scotch Whisky Association should probably be regulating it with a kite mark approval badge for those who are offering investment casks, products that are actually genuine. People are going to get fleeced. The whole investment thing is bringing in criminal intent. And mark my words, it's not going to be long now before something really blows up. And yes, the fallout will affect the whole industry, which is why it needs to be recognised, it needs to be identified, and it needs to be tackled. Problem, reaction, solution. 3 steps to progress in many ways. I'm going to give you 3 bits of advice here. 3 bits of advice for you to buy better bottlings. 1. Visit the online Scotch Whisky Awards. oswa.co.uk. You will see informed opinion. Now, those who provide content won't agree with one another. but it's a good place to start. Because what you will see is the complete absence of some brands from this democratic online award scheme. Secondly, ask a friend. Speak to people who are already into whisky. You cannot beat experience. If you go into a specialist whisky shop or liquor store, you can't take the word of the person behind the counter until you establish that they are genuine and caring and know about their product and are not just hooking you in to sell you something that you don't want simply because it happens to be in special offer. And it helps with their end of month bonus. So it's got to be legitimate. You'll find that on Reddit and Facebook there's lots of groups. There's videos, there's traditional blogs, there's online whisky clubs. And as soon as you start to kind of network a little bit, and it don't have to do much, and find yourself along at a whisky festival, that is where your level of knowledge will suddenly start to shoot up like global debt. Well, that's a kind of fairly shooting up curve, and it goes up like a moon rocket. It goes up like the latest cryptocurrency, whoosh, till it runs out of fuel and then it crashes back down again. But knowledge doesn't come crashing back down, because knowledge is one of the most valuable, precious things that we can obtain that is virtually free of charge and will seriously impact and improve our quality of life in every occasion, in all contexts. And my third piece of advice is be patient. When you buy a bottle of bad whisky, don't worry about it. It'll keep forever. Put the cork back on it, or the screw top or whatever, put it at the back of your cupboard, and every now and again bring out that bottle of bad whisky to remind yourself what bad whisky really is. It could be hot because it's been in a rushed still. It could be flat because it went into soured casks. These reasons, you might not even know the reasons initially, but later on as you gather more experience, you will get your bearings and start to understand why the whisky's not right. It's a fascinating journey. And on that journey, sure, there are many twists and turns. But I conclude by saying this, that when we engage in some depth and intensity in one discipline, and it's the discipline of smell and taste for quality. And it's very similar to the discipline of people going to an art gallery and spending more than 10 seconds looking at a painting. They will sit down and they'll gaze at an artwork for an hour, well, half an hour, and just immerse themselves in it. Not just in the simple colours, but the fusion of colours, the complexity of colours, the flow, the shape, the texture, the message, the characterizations. Artwork is amazingly expressive. It could be music. Listening to music. It's never been easier, never been cheaper. Never. And what's available to us in terms of music, it's never been greater. In many ways this is a gilded age. I know it doesn't seem like it because of all the negativity and the dark propaganda that is sent out as minor key white noise from official medias to keep us suppressed and suffused and disempowered. It's the purpose of it. But it's engaging with something positive. It triggers the positivity within us and actually helps us to grow and appreciate. If we appreciate whisky, we'll appreciate a good cup of coffee. In other words, we won't bother going to Starbucks anymore. Well, I'm just saying. Or we won't bother buying supermarket cheesecake anymore. We'll make one ourselves or buy one at a delicatessen where they're using fresh ingredients and they're not loading up the desserts with preservatives. It's the quality of what we engage with. And I mean, it's as basic as this. You look at one of the biggest health scares and issues in the modern world is cancer. It really is. And so much of it is when you look at the lifestyle, the modern lifestyle of relentless consumption of inferior stuff, which just puts inferior experiences into our body, and our body starts fighting and never stops fighting, trying to deal with it. It just wears down our immunity. It takes time, but not that much time. But quality, it's just smelling, knowing what fresh air is, real fresh air. Knowing what pure water is, real pure water that's not been contaminated with chemicals. Knowing what a really good piece of food item is, a real fresh fish that's been lightly, freshly cooked. Or even a baked potato, if it's a good quality potato, a bit of butter in it. Simple things, but if it's quality, it really empowers the quality of our life. And do you know, whiskey's part of that. Cheers. But ultimately, we always get to know the light by the tone of the shade around it.